Roller coasters and other attractions are generally thrilling and fun. The ones in today's video, however, are dangerous and scary. They're among the most death-defying and downright insane rides ever designed. Let's take a look at the top 15 most scary attractions in the world. Number 15. Formula Rossa. Roller coasters are the most intense attractions at every amusement park around the world, and designers continue to push the limits of what's possible while keeping riders safe. The perfect coaster mixes speed, the sense of danger, and insane twists and turns to leave guests thoroughly shaken and entertained. And by far the scariest of all is the Formula Rossa at Ferrari World in Abu Dhabi. First opened in 2010, it's a hydraulic launch coaster that boasts the fastest speeds in the world. It accelerates to 149.1 miles per hour in just 4.9 seconds. And throughout the ride, passengers experience loads of up to 4.8 G. At 1.4 miles long, it's also the 6th longest steel coaster in the world, but because it travels so fast, the ride is over within 1 minute and 32 seconds. The idea is that it replicates the feeling of driving a Formula One car, and it certainly delivers. Traveling at such a velocity doesn't come without its risks, though. Everyone is required to wear safety goggles to ensure the air pressure doesn't damage their eyes, and the ride can only operate during clear weather conditions, because any rain or dust particles will feel like heavy rocks smashing into you when you're moving at these speeds. Number 14. Tianmen-shan Cable Car. Even though they've been used for decades to access difficult-to-reach mountainous regions, there's something about the way cable cars are suspended in the air solely by a thin wire that continues to scare and thrill tourists the world over. We know in our minds that it's a relatively safe way to travel, but in the moment, with such extreme heights involved, they manage to make even the most hardened of people cling for dear life. Without a doubt, the most frightening and stunning cable car experience anywhere in the world is at the Tianmen Mountain in China, where it takes passengers from the city center of Najbardziej to the air garden, which is on the 4,980-foot summit. At a length of 4.6 miles, it's the longest cable car in the world, and it takes 28 minutes to complete the journey. And this is one of the steepest cable car inclines you'll ever experience, at more than 30 degrees at points. Some of the most beautiful mountain scenery anywhere on Earth, and very little sign of human activity. You can't help but wonder quite what would happen if any of the machinery went wrong. As with all cable cars, this one is closed during high winds and unfavorable weather conditions. And if you just so happen to be on board when this happens, it's potentially a long wait before operations resume once more. Number 13. Insanity. Las Vegas is one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world, attracting people from far and wide to take advantage of the range of attractions and shows that are on offer. But if the excitement and fears of the casinos aren't enough for you, then you should visit the northernmost resort on the Strip, the Stratosphere, which has some of the most frightening rides on Earth. It's the second tallest observation tower in North America, but it's not content with the fright of offering visitors panoramic views of Sin City. At the top of the structure, you'll also find several rides which hold you out over the edge. Probably the most gut-wrenching of all is appropriately named Insanity, and is a spinner ride where guests sit on a claw-like arm before being rotated beyond the side of the building and then spun until they can't take it anymore. At a height of 900 feet above the ground, this is definitely not one for people with vertigo, and there have been several occasions since it opened in 2005 where, due to mechanical failure, people have become stuck on it for more than 90 minutes. Also featuring a roller coaster and vertical drop ride, it's no wonder that the Stratosphere has become a popular addition to the Strip for extreme ride enthusiasts, and why it's often said to be one of the scariest attractions in the world. Number 12. Kilimanjaro Water Slide. Named after the tallest mountain in Tanzania, the Kilimanjaro Water Slide at the Aquasquentes Country Club in Rodovia, Brazil, currently holds the record of being the tallest water slide in the world. Just under 164 feet high, it hasn't always maintained this honor, but because it's proven to be a safe design, it's been able to keep operating since it first opened in 2002. The structure towers over the rest of the water park and can be seen for miles around. It's a body slide, which means riders don't use rafts on it, which makes it all the more scary when you start the descent, because with an incline of 60 degrees, you'll soon be reaching speeds of up to 62 miles an hour. It's said that at least 1 in 3 people turn back once they reach the top and see what's in store, which is all the more surprising considering how long it actually takes to climb the stairs, but proves just how scary the slide actually is and how brave you need to be to take it on. There have been taller slides in the past, but with extra height comes safety issues that parks have yet to overcome, so it's likely Kilimanjaro will remain the biggest water slide for many years to come. Number 11. Volcano Boarding. Since the invention of skateboarding, people have been looking for other ways to enjoy the thrill of using a board to move at fast speeds and perform tricks. And while you have heard of wakeboarding and snowboarding, have you ever heard of volcano boarding before? It has its roots in sandboarding, which became popular in the 1970s and 80s, but with the added complication of steep slopes and the volcanic surroundings, it takes the danger and thrill to a whole new level. Because you need specific conditions for it to be possible, there are only a couple of places around the world where volcano boarding is possible, and the most popular is on the slopes of Cerro Negro in Nicaragua. Riders climb the steep slopes with their plywood boards and then slide down the side, either sitting or standing, along the smooth volcanic sand. As it's an active volcano, extreme caution must be taken, and riders are required to wear safety gear to prevent injuries. There's a risk that you might be hit by flying molten lava, and there's a real concern that inhaling the dusty particles and gases in the area can cause serious damage to your lungs. Still, there's no extreme sport quite like it, and it would surely be more popular if there were more volcanoes where it could be done. Number 10. Blaukranz Bridge. While various communities around the world have used methods similar to bungee jumping for centuries, the modern-day activity like we think of it first took place in the late 1970s by a group of extreme sports enthusiasts from Oxford University, and it would only be in 1986 that the world's first commercial bungee jump operator would begin trading. Since then, people have seemingly attached bungee cords to virtually anything they can think of, but while records have been set from unbelievable setups, the venues available for ordinary people to jump from remain much less precarious. This doesn't take away the thrill of a jump, though, and the current highest commercial bungee jump in the world is at Blaukranz Bridge in South Africa. People started first jumping from the bridge in 1990, and it's been operating in its current form since 1997. At a height of 709 feet above the Blaukranz River, there is no doubt that this is one of the most insane and scariest bungee jumps you can ever do, and one that only the bravest of people should attempt. Number 9. Ngoro. People have to live near where they can work, and as a result, it's not too uncommon to see once thriving villages around the world losing large numbers of residents when employment opportunities dry up as they're forced to move elsewhere. While most places that suffer this fate end up looking like ghost towns, there's a place in Japan that's become far creepier. The town of Ngoro is on the island of Shikoku, and in recent years has become known as the Doll Village. Once home to around 300 people, its population has plummeted to around 35. But a tradition that began in the early 2000s has now made it a strange tourist attraction in its own right. Tsukimi Ayano's family had left the area when she was young, but returned to look after her father when he fell ill. To pass the time, she decided to make a doll in his image that she placed in one of the fields. And she didn't stop there. She has gone on to make hundreds of them. Some that represent villagers that have moved away or died, and others that are effigies or visitors or completely made-up people. There are now at least 400 of them throughout the village and the surrounding area, all of which are positioned in lifelike poses. She's now not the only one who makes the dolls, with school children joining in and other remaining residents too. We're constantly adding more people to the Top 5's production team to bring you all the best content. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on and hit the like button. Number 8. Boating at the Iguazu Falls. On the border between the Argentine province of Misiones and the Brazilian state of Paraná is one of the most beautiful geographical formations in the world, the Iguazu Falls. According to legend, they were the result of a vengeful god slicing the river in half. You can see why people have believed this to be the case. It's where the Iguazu River passes over an area of soft bedrock, and the way it's carved its way through over the centuries now means that depending on the water flow, there can be as many as 300 distinct waterfalls in the region. As much as half of the water flows through a particularly treacherous area known as the Devil's Throat, which is a particular highlight for tourists who can walk along a trail right alongside it to take in the power of the falls for themselves. Those who want a more extreme experience, however, can take an inflatable jet boat tour, which takes them perilously close to the cascading waters. These tours are very popular because of the unparalleled views you get of the place, but obviously come with inherent risk. Passengers will undoubtedly get soaked, but there have been instances where the boats have capsized, and even one that vanished without a trace. It's one of the scariest boat rides you can take in the world, but surely one that's worth the risk? Number 7. Dracula's Castle, Transylvania. Visitors to the central Romanian region of Transylvania are often surprised to find such glorious countryside and mountainous terrain, but amongst the hills at an elevation of 2,500 feet is one of the most famous structures in the world, Bran Castle. For tourism purposes, it's more commonly known as Dracula's Castle and is the closest building in the region to the famous location from Bram Stoker's stories. It doesn't bear any resemblance to how Stoker described the home of the vampire, however, and it's questionable whether the author even saw it. But with countless tourists visiting the region each year, locals needed a focal point to direct them towards. This means that while it wasn't necessarily the inspiration of the legend, the castle has now been inextricably entwined with the stories of Dracula, and as a result is one of the most scary and creepy places in the whole country. First built in the 12th century, it was mainly used as a fort to protect local residents and colonists from roving hordes. There's no doubt that it was an important refuge for enemies of Vlad the Impaler, upon whom the character of Dracula was based during the 15th century. And there are even suggestions that the king was imprisoned at Bran Castle for a time. Other records suggest his time behind bars may have been somewhere else entirely. But because of its ominous and haunting design, Bran Castle was said to be the place to instill fear in his supporters. Wherever the truth may lie, you can't deny that Bran Castle is an imposing Gothic building and has a horribly creepy vibe surrounding it, after being central to the brutal history of the region. And it's certainly one of the most frightening places that you can ever visit. Number 6. Zhangjiajia Grand Canyon Glass Bridge. In recent years, thanks to the wider availability of tough materials, regions around China have begun installing a brand new type of tourist attraction: glass bridges that are completely see-through. There are now thought to be at least 2,300 of them in China alone, but the one that stands out above the rest is the Zhangjiajia Grand Canyon Glass Bridge. Stretching between two mountain cliffs in the National Forest Park, the 1,410-foot-long structure was the biggest glass bridge in the world when it opened in 2016, and is suspended 980 feet above the valley floor beneath. It's made up of a metal frame upon which 120 glass panels were placed, each of which is 3 layers thick of 2-inch tempered glass. Even though the rules of physics mean the bridge should be safe, there have been several safety concerns about the design. It was closed just 2 weeks after the grand opening because so many people arrived to see it for themselves that it couldn't handle the loads. Having been designed to hold 800 people at a time and accommodate 8,000 visitors a day, more than 10 times the number were showing up, and urgent adaptations had to be made. If you're not scared enough just by walking over the bridge, then operators have some tricks up their sleeves to make sure it's a day you'll remember. There's a harness swing attached to the bottom of it for thrill seekers, and there are employees whose only job it is to walk along the bridge with a sledgehammer and smash some of the glass so the top layer visibly cracks beneath people's feet. Number 5. Steel Dragon 2000. Steel Dragon 2000 is a steel roller coaster at the Nagashima Spa Land in the Mie Prefecture of Japan. When it opened at the turn of the century, it broke a number of records, and to this day it remains the longest steel roller coaster in the world, with a length of 8,133 feet. The track has a maximum height of 318 feet, with a drop of 307 feet, and trains can reach a top speed of 95 miles per hour, which makes it one of the fastest lift hill coasters on Earth. Beyond the usual thrills of helixes, hills, and sweeping turns, there are 2 tunnels along the route, and is often cited as one of the most extreme coasters you can ride on. Incredibly, it cost more than $52 million to build, which is far more than most steel coasters. This is because far more steel was needed in its construction to ensure that it would be able to endure an earthquake. And this is an ever-present danger if you do go on the ride. There have also been several accidents since it first opened, including one where a train lost a wheel and detached from the track, meaning you could be taking much more of a risk by riding this coaster than you would be with any other. Number 4. The Cage of Death. Even though humans have become the dominant species on Earth, there's still plenty of creatures that can cause us serious harm if we get too close. This danger means that we're often fascinated by such powerful animals. And while shark diving is now a common attraction around the world, there's a place in Darwin, Australia that goes one better by putting you in an enclosure with a ferocious saltwater crocodile. Known as the Cage of Death, visitors are locked inside a 1.5-inch thick acrylic box and are lowered into the salty's tank. A large piece of meat is attached beneath the cage to attract the croc towards the thrill seekers, and they are left there for 15 minutes while the 20-foot-long, 2,000-pound beast thrashes against the walls. As with all experiences like this, it's probably best not to read up about the safety record before you go, because if you do, you'll either decide against taking the risk or will be in for one of the most frightening times of your life. While every precaution has to be made to ensure that the Cage of Death is totally safe, there have been a few incidents that ramp up its danger. In 2011, one of the cables used to lower the cage broke, and the cage, along with the people inside it, fell into the tank. It struck the base, cracked, and a foot-long piece broke off. But luckily, on that occasion, the croc stayed clear and watched the panic ensue. Number 3. Edgewalk. At 1,815 feet high, the CN Tower in Toronto, Canada is the tallest observation tower in North America, and after opening in 1976 had given millions of tourists a unique view out across the city, and one that tests their nerves. Of course, within the safety of the structure, only the worst vertigo sufferers face too many difficulties. But in 2011, a new attraction opened that would change all that, called the Edge Walk. Those who are brave enough can walk on the roof of the main pod of the tower at a height of 1,168 feet. Attached by a harness, there's a 5-foot wide metal floor around the perimeter, and you can walk hands-free around it all. There's just enough slack in the cables for people to lean over the edge in an experience that really challenges you to trust the equipment. Unsurprisingly, Edgewalk is only open during certain times of the year during calm weather, because the tower is often subjected to strong storms and covered in ice, which would make it far too dangerous, even with a safety harness. It's now become one of the most popular attractions in the city, and definitely one of the scariest things you can do there. Number 2. Mount Hua. Located in the Shanxi province of China, Huangshan is one of the 5 great mountains of China, and has long been the site of religious significance. With 5 peaks, it reaches a maximum height of 7,070 feet above sea level, and there are a number of temples and structures over its slopes that attract visitors. If you want to climb the mountain, you can, but you'll be in for a terrifying experience along what is often described as the most dangerous hike in the world. There are narrow pathways, a frightening walk along a steep cliff on wooden planks without safety harnesses, and unpredictable weather patterns that can reduce visibility and cover the area in water within just a few minutes' warning. With increased tourism to the area and reports of fatal accidents, authorities have worked to improve the overall safety of the hike. They have cut wider pathways, built stone staircases, and added railings on the most dangerous parts, but even so, you take your life into your own hands by beginning the ascent. Of course, if you want to see what there is at the top and don't want to take such a risk, you could just travel up by cable car instead. Number 1. Yukon Striker. Roller coaster designs are becoming increasingly radical as amusement parks compete to attract the world's thrill seekers. And in 2019, Canada's Wonderland in Ontario put itself on the map with the opening of the Yukon Striker. This 3,625-foot-long steel roller coaster reaches a maximum height of 223 feet, reaches a top speed of 81 miles per hour, and currently holds the records for being the tallest, longest, and fastest dive coaster in the world. It also has the most inversions of any dive coaster, the longest drop, and is the only one to have a full vertical loop. The ride begins by climbing the 223-foot lift hill. Once at the top, the train hangs over the edge of one of the 90-degree drop for a few seconds before plummeting 245 feet into an underwater tunnel where it reaches its top speed. Cars then shoot out of the tunnel into the world's largest Immelmann loop before hitting a zero-G roll, a 360-degree vertical loop, and another Immelmann loop. Following this is an airtime hill and a 360-degree helix section before slowly returning to the station. In total, the ride lasts for just 205 seconds, but it's so packed with elements that there's hardly a chance to catch your breath. The Yukon Striker immediately became the scariest and most thrilling dive coaster on Earth, and is one of the best steel coasters of any type, and it surely proves that there's still a long way left to go in terms of roller coaster designs and the limits that can be pushed. It makes you wonder, what's coming next? Subscribe to Top 5s for more and check out some of our other popular videos.